Hello and welcome to What's the Story? We're an inquisitive bunch of hosts from the What's the Story team on a mission to uncover stories about faith and courage from everyday people. And to help us do just that, we get the privilege to chat with amazing guests and delve into their faith journey, the hurdles they've overcome, and the life lessons they have learned along the way. Now, if you enjoy our podcast, don't forget to subscribe and sign up for our newsletter on our website, which is whatsthestorypodcast.com. It's your direct line to the latest episodes and detailed show notes, and they all get delivered straight to your inbox. And the best part, it's absolutely free. What's the Story is brought to you by Crowd Church. We understand that stepping into a traditional church might not be everybody's cup of tea. And that's where Crowd Church steps in, providing a digital sanctuary, a safe space to explore the Christian faith where you can engage in meaningful conversations rather than just simply spectating. So whether you are new to the Christian faith or are in search of a new church family, we invite you to visit us at www.crowd.church. And if you've got any questions, just drop us an email at hello@crowd.church. We're here to help and would genuinely love to connect with you. And now, without further ado, let's meet your host and our very special guest for today.
Hi and welcome to What's the Story? My name is Anna Kettle. I'm one of your hosts here, and this is a podcast full of stories all about faith and courage from everyday people. Now today I'm joined by my friend Katy Parker. Katy is a Christian mental health advocate and a trauma-informed wellbeing writer who integrates mental health and faith into her words. She is originally from Slovakia, as you'll probably detect in her accent when we chat in a moment, but she now lives on the south coast of England with her husband Chris. Katy writes about her own journey of overcoming trauma on her Journey of Smiley blog, and also hosts the PTSD My Story project, which is a safe online space for trauma survivors to share their own stories and also help fight the stigma surrounding mental health. Now, Katy, that all sounds pretty cool, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about it in a second.
Thank you so much for
joining us on the
here.
podcast today.
Thank you so much.
Now, there's so many interesting parts of your story, and I'm keen to unpack all of them. There's like a difficult childhood that you had growing up in Slovakia, and then more recently you lost your mum to cancer, which is very sad. And you've also been involved in a major car accident that had some really life-changing consequences for you, actually. So I want to get into all of that stuff, but I guess shall we start right back at the beginning? And maybe you could tell us a bit more about your background, about what life was like growing up in Slovakia and how you became a Christian too.
I was born in Slovakia. My life in Slovakia, I have lots of cousins. We are a big family. I've got lots of cousins. My mom comes from a big family. I came from a big family. When I think of my childhood, I always try to think like of the happy times, meeting up at granny's place at holidays, and having all the cousins or uncles, aunties, everything all together. But then as well was the side of growing up in Slovakia and my family, immediate family. My mom did have quite a hard life, I must say, unfortunately. As I said, she comes from lots of children. Yeah, she was one of the oldest. So she had to kind of help lots of time at home as one of the oldest. Then she got married, and my father was alcoholic, unfortunately, and my mom as well lost her first child So the first child actually she lost as well before I was born. So she had to go through lots of things, but to be honest, she was always my role model because she was very strong. Yeah, she was very strong. She was very strong in faith, and that's how my faith. Yeah, that's where my faith comes from. Is from my mom. because she was, everything she went through, and how strong she was always in her faith is really something I admired, actually, many times. And then after I finished school, I went to Germany. I studied there as well. And after that, I came to England, and I studied in England as well. But whilst I was in England, I studied here at university, and I met here my husband, and that's where we live, in England, the south coast. But when I came to England, my mum became ill then. She got cancer, unfortunately. And it was really tough because I was here in England and she was living in Slovakia. And I think it's many times people who, when we leave our country, we think we can go for something better. And so usually it is a hope for something better. And so, but then when something like this happens, when you kind of suddenly have something going on at home and you cannot just, got in the car and drive there in an hour, be at home or so. It's always kind of set you in thing where you think, you kind of almost think if you made the right decision, if it is all okay. And so, but my mom was an amazing person when it comes to this. She always supported me. She always was, after my dreams, like, yes, you got to go, really, and so she wasn't somebody who would keep me at home. And so yes, it wasn't easy, but we managed for years. And luckily I was working, because I was working at school in a private kind of education. And so it was easy for me to go every 6 weeks, really, to visit her, go home. Then unfortunately the cancer returned again and she lost her battle then. And it was very strange, very hard as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's so tough to it's so tough to deal with grief and just having someone dealing with long-term illness in your family, any kind of long-term illness where, you're having to travel backwards and forwards internationally. It's just such extra stress, isn't it, on an already difficult situation, I'm sure. And to have to navigate that, I can only imagine it's just very
but
complicated.
you just do what you have to do,
That's really tough.
It's what you have to do, and then that's what you just try, and you just pray, really. I mean, I just prayed that I would be able to do this, and I was just grateful as well for this, that I had the opportunity and that I could go every 6 weeks home. And so
but you weren't unfortunately able to be there in time for when she actually passed away, were you? Like she because of the travel.
Yes, it
was. So that must have been really tough as well, I can imagine.
I had to have an operation myself, actually, at the time when she passed away. And my plan was that, because my brother was then at home, and he as well kind of moved then away from Slovakia, but then he came the last few weeks, the last several weeks when Mom was really bad, and he came and he stayed there. And I was hoping to go afterwards. I was thinking, okay, I'll finish my university a year, I'll go home and I will be there with her. I'll look after her. And the plan was stay there. As I said, I went every 6 weeks home. In summer, it was for longer because I could stay for longer because long summer holidays. But then, so I was home in February. And then 6 weeks after, I was supposed to have my operation. And I already had a ticket home to go on Sunday. And my operation is supposed to be on Friday. And even my mom was like, oh, you shouldn't probably travel, like parents obviously getting a little bit worried, you shouldn't perhaps travel straight after operation. And so I said, no, don't worry, ma'am, we'll be all fine. And my brother is at home, he can look after me as well, and all these things. But I was like, no, it will be all fine. But we many times we plan, and God has got different plans as well. Not everything is in our power as well, and we cannot control everything. That's true. And so as I was there in hospital already, prepared for the operation. Now, I was born obviously in this kind of hospital gown, lying in a bed, and I fell asleep, and then now I woke up because I had a dream, like I could see angel in my dream, and I woke up and I was thinking, oh, was it like, did I already have my operation or so? Like what was it really? Like, I don't even know how long I slept actually for. So I reached for my phone. And then as you have a phone, you see sometimes the first line kind of the message and so. And I could see there was a message from my brother. And it said, mom is in coma.
Yeah.
And I was, oh no, I kind of panicked. I was even scared to open that message, I was like, hopefully I didn't have operation, looking at me like, I think I'm still alright, so I went to toilet. And as I was there, in the bathroom, I opened the phone, actually opened the message. And I read it then. And I was a little bit kind of thinking irrationally as well, because I was thinking, what am I supposed to do? Like, do I run away from hospital or like what? Like, I don't even know what am I supposed to do. But I need to go home, And so I phoned my husband, and luckily he was able to book me onto the last plane, and last space actually in a plane, the last ticket back home that day. And so I was thinking, okay, let's now just take a deep breath and start to think like rationally what you're going to do. So obviously I need to go to see somebody and I need to tell them. So I did find luckily some nurses, and I did tell them what has happened. They were very good, because they were, they were like, oh, like, is there maybe like we could phone the hospital? And so I was like, no, it's actually not in this country, I need to go home. So they were like, oh no, like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, we can schedule the operation for another day. And so I was like, okay, my husband came to pick me up, and we just did drive home. We packed quickly, and he made me something to eat, because like before the operation, you're not allowed to really eat anything. And so I was thinking, okay. Yeah, and I was thinking, okay,
So
give and take, who
about
knows
to
when I'm
in
going to have like food
crazy.
again, like just, and your stomach kind of, you don't really want to eat anything, but then you feel like I probably should have something. So I had something small to eat. He made it for me, and I just packed a clothes, thinking, I'm probably just going to there to funeral, really, to say goodbye, because what else is going to really happen? There is not much really to it. So I packed my black clothes and everything mostly, and we were driving to the airport, and we got there. And I remember we had a bit of time, so we sat and my husband said, okay, I'm going to get some hot drinks. And so he went to get us something. And I just know, and then like as he left, I had a phone call, and he looked at me because my phone just started to ring, and he looked at me, and that was my auntie, and she just said, and unfortunately, my mom passed away. I didn't manage to get there. And so I just looked at him, he looked at me, and I was just shaking my head saying, no, I just didn't make it, So it was the longest journey then home, because I had to take a plane, then train, a night train, and everything. And I was just thinking, it's almost like you don't really think this is actually really happening. You don't really think, you're like, no, it's really like being in a shock, really.
Like,
you think like, no, I'm like, no, it's not, like, it's going to be okay. Like, when I get there, it will be okay or so. But the thing is, it's not, unfortunately. So I got home, and I remember the next day, actually was maybe the same day, my brother actually asked me if I would like to go to see where mom is kind of in the coffin. And so before the funeral, and I said, yeah, of course I would like to go. And we came there into this room. Now, my mom was lying, and she smiled. She was there with a smile, closed eyes and so, but with a smile. Now, and as I walked in, what I saw, and I said it now, I shared it with a few people, and I don't really know still what I'm supposed to think about it. Maybe it's a sign or so, but I saw my mom almost like she'll lift up or so, like from like lying, she's kind of sat up, but like gliding, and she just looked at me and she just said, so you finally you're here, and it's such a smile. And then she glid back into the lying down position. And I was just totally shocked, because I was thinking I so much wanted to come here, but now I was really almost scared also. I was thinking, am I getting crazy? Like, is it because I haven't really had any sleep? Is it because like what's going on? Like, I was thinking, is it like, I just kind of ran away from that place out. And my brother was like, "You okay?" And I was like, "Do you know what? I really don't like. I don't know. I don't really know if I am okay and what I should think about it." So I said this to him. I shared it with him. And then I was thinking, I was actually saying this quite recently to a therapist there, and she said to me, "What do you think it kind of meant?" And I was like, that's what I'm kind of just trying to think all the time myself, really. And then she said, "Do you think it meant maybe like some sign was it or so?" And I said, like, I wonder if it was a sign. Maybe my mom knew that I obviously wanted to be there, and now thinking that some of my family they were there, my brother, his family, and so, and I wasn't there. It was really for me. So that you just kind of beat yourself for this all the time, you think, why I didn't come just a day earlier? Why I just, So I was thinking, I wonder if it was just her saying, it's okay, it's all right. It's all right as it is, and you don't need to blame yourself. So, but as a human, we often blame ourselves for things like this, and I did blame myself.
Yeah. It's easy to feel guilty, isn't it? Because you didn't make it in time, but obviously there was nothing you could have done in that case. And in some ways, it really feels like, I know, sort of like listening to your story, it feels like God's great grace and hand was on that situation, even though it was really tough and you were really far away. It's like the fact you didn't go into that operation when, minutes earlier or something, that text came through just in time. It was like kind of, even though you didn't get that chance to say goodbye that I know you really wanted, it's like God's grace was sort of there, and he didn't let you go through the operation when you needed to fly home and see your mum. And then that kind of, whether that happened or it's just the mind, I don't know, but like that moment you had where you just felt like your mum saying it's okay to you, and that peace, like, it's really good that you were able to get a little bit of closure. And it sort of feels like, obviously it didn't unfold quite the way you wanted it to, and it's disappointing that you didn't get to say goodbye face to face. But also, that feels like kind of like
that's what
the
it
next
kind of
best
felt
thing,
like,
that
like
closure.
the closure, like I really needed it probably, So
Yeah.
even though it kind of like scared me, and I didn't know what should I think about it, But then I think now, actually, with the time, and so I think, I probably needed it. I probably just needed to kind of say, it's all fine, it's all okay. You don't need to blame yourself for everything, and because we often do, people, because when things like this happen, we always kind of ask things like, what could I do still? I could do this different if I just do this, or whatever. So we often do kind of blame ourselves, and it comes, really with grief. Comes this blaming and even shame, really, and all these things. So yes, but I think now, as I think about it, I as well. It was quite hard, obviously, when my mom passed away, and but it was so hard, actually. My husband, actually, then we were still kind of dating together, and so, but I didn't want to even to get married, for a while after this. I was just thinking, no, I don't want to, because I couldn't imagine not to have my mom there. Like, obviously every girl or I know, when they get married, kind of having your mom there, and all this thing, and my father passed away as well, but then, as I said, they were divorced, and so I wanted to have my mom there, obviously, and for a while I was really thinking I will never get married. And then, I met somebody, actually, a friend of a friend, I think, was it, whom she was going to get married then. And she kind of asked me if like, oh, would you go? And I was like, I said to her, like, I probably will never get married, because I said to her what has happened. And she said to me, but she said to me something that really kind of hit me. She said to me, now imagine you would say this to your mom, because she passed away or she departed and she's not anymore in pain because she left you. You're not going to get married. Like, how would she feel if you would say this to her? And I was then thinking, oh gosh, I would never say this to my mom. Like, I would break her heart. I could not just like have my mom here in front of me and saying to her, like, Mom, I know you're not in pain now anymore. I know you're not suffering now anymore. But because you left me, I'm not going to get married. I was like, oh gosh, I would never be able to say this to her. So I said to her, I never was actually thinking this way. That, yes, you are right. Obviously, I would never be able to say this to my mom. And then I think, what would I then say to my mom, and what would she say back to me? Obviously, she would want me to get married. She would want me to still continue in my life, to be happy, and so. And that was another thing. What I just after this said, I think my mom will be happy for me if I would get married. So then we just 8 years ago we got married.
Definitely, definitely. That's 8 years ago. It's your anniversary this week as well, you're saying. So I think you're so right though, because I think grief is, and it's such a tricky thing to process, isn't it? And it takes time, and it can make you feel so emotional and can really change your perspective. But actually, I think that's really insightful, because it's like those who leave us, I kind of think those of us who are left behind, the best tribute to those we've lost is to continue to live our lives fully. And, I think that about people I've lost. I think the best way to honour them is to live the best life I can, because I still get to be here
and they
do
would
something
want
with my
it,
life.
and
So,
it is not like, because first actually
really
I was
insightful.
thinking as well, no, is it not like then, like I didn't like my mom, or I didn't love my mom because I would want to enjoy my life or so, but actually it's not, because they would want to do this, actually, they would want us to do this. So I think, and as well, grief is not like,
Definitely.
okay, that my mom passed away, I grieved, and now it's all fine. Grief is not like this. Grief comes, the time comes when just suddenly you want to cry, and then just cry.
Yeah.
It's fine, it is okay to cry. Just allow yourself as well those emotions. And so, I mean, as long as you don't stuck in this, really, then God gave us emotions for a reason. I always say so. So, and I think that's okay to feel whatever you feel, because that's as well the way to heal then. If we don't allow ourselves to really to feel those emotions, and we just suppress all the time, then we never really get really the healing. How do you want to be whole if you just don't allow yourself, to do this? So, and I went through this. Through this myself, really, because as you say, there have been so many things in my life. My mom, and then obviously my accident as well, what we probably were going to talk about as well. That was another thing, really. Because I think until then I was trying to, just anything what happened in my life, I was just, going to go like, oh, it's okay. I saw my mom, she was like always cope with everything. She was the fighter, really, person. And even the cancer didn't break her the first time. And so I was like, she was, and I was like, always want to be like her. But then, later kind of noticed, like, we never kind of at home talk about, for example, about trauma. So we would talk about fate. She would bring us to fate and God and so, but we would never, like, even those things are still sometimes, I think, taboo, like mental health, trauma and stuff, And so first after my accident, like 2 months after, when I had, when I was diagnosed with PTSD, and so first then I actually was really thinking, I need to heal, but maybe I actually need to heal from everything, really, because my accident.
Yeah.
So just talking actually about it briefly.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about what happened, because you had a road accident
Yeah,
in 2020. You were involved in a serious car accident,
yeah,
and it actually almost cost you your life at the time. So tell us a little bit more about that and how that
yeah,
affected you, and then we'll talk more generally, pick
yeah,
up again on that whole theme of like healing from trauma and
yeah.
you know the impact on your mental health. But yeah, just backtrack a little bit and tell us a little bit
So in
about the
2020,
accident. What
what a
happened?
year was it, 2020, probably for everybody, probably a year not to forget, really. But just when I was
Yeah,
thinking, okay, this
COVID.
cannot
Yeah.
get surely any worse than year, it's coming towards the end. So just a few weeks before the end, No, for me, it just really came then. I was going home from work, and I only live like about 10 minutes from my work. So I was walking. And as I was crossing a road, a car hit
Yeah.
me, a fan hit me, and I just ended up on the ground, obviously lying on the ground. And I even remember kind of in my mind, I was just kind of saying to myself, just get up, just get up. But I couldn't. I could not even move, really. So then again, it's the silver lining. See,
Yeah.
again, God, thank you. Usually, because there was a lockdown, so my husband was really just 10 minutes away or 5 or so where it happened. So somebody went to, because there was a witness as well, so somebody went to get actually my
Uh-huh.
husband. And then, my husband came, and then the hospital, the hospital cars, the ambulance came, and all these things, and unfortunately, I had to go to hospital by myself, not with
Yeah.
him, because of lockdown. And and he took me to hospital. I had all the scans and everything,
Oh,
and
shit.
they did actually figure out that I had a fracture. I fractured my back. So I first couldn't move at all. Then later on, I was on
Yeah.
the walking frame. Yes, with the walking frame. And a week later, actually, I was on crutches. I know it was first time on crutches. And there was physio or occupational therapist or whichever with me. We were kind of doing these exercises, teaching you how to walk with crutches and all this thing. And I know I was coming back towards my bed, and there was like a big window in front of me. And I looked out of the window, and I could see the traffic. I could see
Uh-huh.
the ambulances, ambulance cars. And I just stood there, and I couldn't even move, like frozen. I just stood there. I was in my mind back then, where it was all happening. The
Yeah.
therapist like looked at me, she's like, "Are you okay?" And when she asked this, I just broke into tears. And she obviously knew what was going on.
Mm.
I kind of did have my first flashback, and so she said to me, let's go to your bed, and we closed the curtains inside. And she said, "So what?" I was like, "Well, have you seen outside?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Have you seen the cars?" And she's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, well, what about cars were there?" And I was like, "Yeah, ambulance cars." And I was in the ambulance when I got here. So it was really, I was like, I was back there and everything. And I was thinking, I'm getting
Yeah.
crazy. Like, I'm just, I don't know what is happening to me. I'm getting crazy. And
Yeah.
yeah, and
And it
so
was
she said to
post-traumatic
me,
stress.
she said to me almost like, I was
Yeah.
so lucky, to be honest, like God sent me those people in my way really for a reason. Because she said to me,
Yeah.
don't worry, that's kind of almost as
Yeah.
if they just kind of expected that something like this would happen. So she said to me, don't worry, it was just really a matter of the time, and you are, this is just a normal reaction. This is totally normal reaction. There's nothing wrong with you. And luckily I had a
Yeah.
pastoral care in the hospital as well, very good pastoral care as well, a priest who came and we talked. But really, me going through
That's
all
good.
this drama in my life, it felt like the accident was like the cherry on the top. And it just like opened the Pandora box, and suddenly everything just started to fly around, all the traumatic things I went through just started to fly around. And so in Slovakia, I wanted to study journalism. And I used to write in Slovakian, so I haven't been doing so since I left the country. And I lived obviously in Germany first and in England, and so I didn't do any writing or anything. I haven't been doing anything like this. Now, being there in a hospital by yourself in lockdown, with a head like this, I was thinking, God, do you know what? I really don't care. Just give me paper and pen, and I need to empty my head. And that's what I did. And that's why so much now writing and talking and speaking actually and writing about is so much about how writing can help us with the healing. Because I honestly think, I'm so grateful that we have something like writing, and that we can empty our head on paper. And so, because I just wonder, not being able to have visitor, nothing, being there by yourself. I was really grateful I could just take a pen and paper and empty my head, and really just actually writing was therapy for me then.
Yeah.
So,
And that's basically where your blog and like all the work you've been doing since then started from. I mean, it's amazing really, because I'm a massive like advocate for like writing as therapy as well. Like I've done it with my own miscarriage journey, and I highly recommend journaling or blogging to anyone who's struggling with any area of emotional stress, life changes, mental health issues, anything. It's such a great therapeutic tool, isn't it? It's something that anyone can do. You don't have to put your thoughts on the internet. You can just put them in a journal, but like it's such a great tool to use. So, I'm a big advocate for it too, and I know it's been a massive benefit for you, and now you encourage other people to do it as well.
And then when this happened to me, I mean, I was as well so great, as I said, so grateful having all these people around me, because having all this help. And so because I was always thinking, seeing my mom, and so and it's probably as well because of the culture, the culture and mental health as well. My mom grew up in Slovakia. We used to be a communist country, so it was almost kind of people, it was not okay, almost kind of like stand up out of the queue, or kind of like, you had to be like all uniform and everything kind of uniform and stuff. So I don't even know really if my mom, even if she would ask for help about, so if they like what services would be available or nothing like this really. I mean, even we know like probably even 60 whatever years ago was hard probably everywhere anyway to get anything like this, 50 years and so but I was actually really grateful that I had the help. And then I was 2 months after my accident and diagnosed with PTSD, because the flashback still persisted and everything really was there, and I started to have anxiety because as much as I wanted to go home from the hospital, I was as well, I felt so safe, being amongst these four walls, and there's nothing is going to happen to you there. You're safe. You have a nurses, you have a doctors there, you have everything, and it's kind of like, for me it was like the system, it can just protect me really, like I don't want to go outside. And so yes. Yeah, honestly, like a cotton ball wrapped, really, like I don't want to go out, like that's what I got hurt, and that's what all this happened, but then I wanted to go home as well to my husband, obviously. So I was like, no, I do want to. And then you go on some stage, you go like, I don't want this fear really to take control over my life neither. Like, yes, I know it was there, and I know how hard it was to, get over this, but I don't want to. Is anyway, trauma took so much away from my life, and I cannot allow it to control everything in my life, So I was just like, no, if we cannot, like, I cannot really do this. So I slowly had to go kind of back to as well. First I got very kind of dependent on my husband, because obviously it was lockdown as well and all this thing, and he was at home, so he was working mostly from home, and he was there always to support me. And so And then I almost lost my independence. And so yeah, I really got dependent on him. And then I was like, no, I actually would like to go by myself for a walk. And so, but first, yeah, as well, don't trust yourself. But then, yeah, obviously you read the Bible, you read everything, and you notice, and kind of give anxiety and all on the God. But as well, having PTSD is not exactly so straight, because having PTSD is actually a brain injury. So if you think that your brain cannot really work in that way, you're probably not going to think as you would otherwise. Like, yes, yeah, of course, I give my anxiety to God and all these things. Or if you cannot really think that so clearly, then it really, I think, first you need as well, you need obviously God, but you need to heal as well, and you need people around you and the support circle and everything.
Yeah.
So I was glad that in the end I was just like, God, I give you a hand, and slowly, like, let's just step by step, because as well, I think making a big step or so is damaging as well, especially for people who go through anxiety and PTSD and so. So it's like, no, let's just lead me step by step, baby steps. Now I'll be fine. I'll just hold your hand and I'll be fine. And that's kind of how is it actually until now still, really.
Yeah. And so you've obviously been doing your writing,
Yes.
as an ongoing project and encouraging others to do it. And you've had lots of
And I still have,
counselling
yes,
and, you had professional mental health support.
yes,
And it's been a real journey. It's been a real journey, but, obviously you're not still in that place, and you have really, moved
yeah,
forwards and kind of getting your
yes,
life back
because
together now. And that's incredible. And to be recommended, and like, it definitely feels like, what I love about your story is the fact that you don't shy away from the fact that it's a process, that healing isn't necessarily instant,
yeah,
but it takes time, and like you say,
yes,
baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. But
yes, and
it
I
is a
mean,
journey, but you are
I
moving
suffered
forwards.
obviously injury, physical and mentally, and I'm still in recovery, both for
Mm.
both, really. I'm
Yeah,
still in pain and so on. I
yeah,
now got chronic pain and so on. Live with chronic pain is another thing. So yes, yeah, it has been a journey and still is. And
yeah,
and I always say healing is a journey. And healing is so many things for different people. I wrote an ebook,
yeah,
actually, a trauma survivor's guide, and I say that really, what is healing? Like, are we ever able to heal? No. Yes, yeah, but what is healing? Healing is so subjective. It is really for different people something different. Some people just get out of the bed,
yeah,
and so it's just amazing step forward. Some people, like, perhaps they have a less flashbacks or nightmares and so, and it's
yeah,
already. So it's really about managing the symptoms, managing the things, and yeah, and it is really, grief is a journey, so healing is a journey, and it really is, and it's never really even,
yeah,
just like this. No, I had a setbacks on the way, along the way, I had a setbacks, and yeah, it is. But I mean, trust God. I do
yeah,
trust God. I always say my faith, and I think my positivity got me where I am now, and I don't know what I would do otherwise. And my mom used to always say, actually, everything happens for a reason. And at first, kind of, when she said it to me, and she was then having a consent, so I first was like, no, mom, why do you say this? Like, why would somebody who is ill and so saying something like this? Like, why? And now I kind of, I go like,
yeah,
but everything happens for a reason. If, like, there is a silver lining in everything, I think. And sometimes is it hard to find it, and it is okay. Is as well for me. Like,
yeah,
we practice, for example, every night with my husband gratitude. Since by accident, we're doing this every night, and every night we're trying to find things we are grateful for. But then I as well know
wow,
that there is not always, like,
yeah,
it's not something it has to be forced as well. Sometimes you feel just like in this, like, God, it is hard. And it is hard,
yeah,
And I think God wants us to, as it says, come to
yeah,
me as you are. So he doesn't want us to, like, it's my blog called Journey of Smiley as well, and I'm like all the smiley things, and I always kind of, my mom used to call me Smiley, and they even in hospital said to me Smiley because I was always smiling, and so, you know, and I
I
go
love
like,
that.
but then my therapist actually said to me, Katy, it's okay not to be okay, you know, and I really had to learn this, and you know, I think as well. So is gratitude, like I find it very really like helpful, but as well I know it is something which should not be really forced, and so I mean like everything takes time, you know, and it's better to give yourself time as well, because like I said in hospital, when I opened this when this Pandora box opened, because before I was always just trying to, okay, something happened, okay, just let's put it here, let's just put it behind, like, you know, well, it is not really, we do need to feel in order to heal. So, you know, just be, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess if you've grown up in a culture that doesn't really acknowledge mental health and doesn't really allow much space for feelings and variation of feelings, then it's like, you know, it's quite a big lesson, I guess, that, isn't it? And it's like it's great to always be like happy, but also that idea that it's okay not to be okay sometimes
Yes.
is actually a really big deal to learn
Yeah,
that when
exactly, you
you've not
know,
grown up in
and
a culture
I
that
as well
allows that
kind of
space.
thinking, you
Yeah.
know, that actually, yeah, there's like the Bible says actually, for power is made perfect in weakness. You know, so I think it's not just about really, faith doesn't mean
Yeah.
always to just really be strong, and so, you know, so it's, yeah, it is just come as you are, God says. So yeah, and just let yourself feel those feelings and acknowledge
Yeah.
your feelings, and so, because as I say, if you want to heal, you need to feel. So it's,
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, because I was just going to finish by asking you what's kind of one lesson that you've learned through
yeah.
all of this. And I suppose that you'd probably say that's it, wouldn't you? That it's okay to admit your weakness, your brokenness, and your need for God, and that actually it's like when we're weak, then God's strength is able to work through
Yeah,
us. So I guess, would you say that's the
I would
kind of
definitely say
big
this, you know,
lesson
and going through
that's been
actually the
here for
pain and
you through all of
everything as
this
well, I
process?
say, and you know,
Yeah.
God doesn't really want you neither to put yourself always last as well. I think that's another lesson I learned. Like I said, yeah, all those things, but as well, I was always thinking I have to put
Yeah.
myself last, kind of like I have to serve God, I have to serve others, and then God wants me to do this, and so, but you know, you cannot really pour from an empty cup, you know, as they say. So you really do need to look after yourself. After
Yeah.
all, your body is your temple, is the temple, so you do need it as well. And God definitely doesn't want you to put yourself last, and so, you know, and yeah, so I think all those things, I'm still learning some of these things still, and sometimes it takes a long time, but yeah, I'm the life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a lifelong
exactly,
lesson, right?
learning all my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, learning all my
I think
life,
we're all
but
learning this
yes,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I think all these lessons are kind of lifelong for most of us, actually. But yeah, it's so true. It's so true that you can't give out of what you don't have, do you? So, you know, it's so important to look after you and your own mental health. And yeah, I think that ties up quite neatly. Katy, it's been so lovely to hear a bit about your story. I'm so sorry that you've been
I
through
don't
so
know, I
many
always
hard
say
things
there's
in
a
a
silver
row,
lining
but
somewhere, you know.
it's
So
so inspiring
yes,
to
yeah.
Exactly. And it's so inspiring to hear your journey and how you're not defeated, but actually you're using, your story for good, you're sharing it with others.
Yeah.
And, I know there's so much more in your story that we probably haven't got time to cover here and now. But if listeners are interested in what you've been talking about around grief processing, around PTSD, around mental health, I know it will resonate with some of our listeners. And if people want to find you, find out more about your story and about the resources you
Yeah,
offer,
and so
then
you can find
tell
me on
us, where
Journey
can
of
we find you? Tell
Smiley.
us all the
Yeah, and it's
things.
actually Journey of Smiley. So yeah, it's my journey. It's a journey of hope and healing. So yeah, and as I say, always encourage, vulnerability and all these things. So really just, acknowledge your feelings and everything. And that's what I write about as well. And my email is smiley@journeyofsmiley.com. All the website is Journey of Smiley, and all my Instagram and all the social things are Journey of Smiley. So Facebook and so. But as well for if anybody really, if you want to share your story also, I'm always willing and I'm always grateful to every trauma survivors, for sharing their stories, because I think there's the message and there's that, you are not alone and so on. We can as well tell the other people that they are not alone. As well as that, I do lots about journaling and so, and you find on my website as well. I got a journaling tips and prompts to download if anybody needs. But as well, I did, right, I don't know if you can see it. So I did publish a guide. It's a 7 keys to self-healing and trauma survivors guide. So where I actually write what I learn is my experience, my knowledge, but as well discussions with the with the therapists, with the health professionals and so. So I just hope it helps other people as well.
That sounds awesome. What a great resource. Well, loads of great resources there, actually. So find you in all the places at Journey of Smiley and journeyofsmiley.com for the website. I guess all your social handles are there anyway. And just to say to listeners, we will link to all of these links through the show notes as well on our website. Katy, thank you so much for giving up your time and sharing a bit of your story with us today. It's been so great to hear it.
I really hope that, that it helps your listeners. I hope everybody finds something for them in this.
I'm sure it will. And if anybody wants to link with Katy, I know she'd be happy to link with you one-on-one and chat some more. So thank you so much, Katy, and thank you, listeners, for being here today too.
And just like that, we have reached the end of another fascinating conversation. Now remember to check out Crowd Church at www.crowd.church, even if you might not see the point of church. You see, we are a digital church on a quest to discover how Jesus can help us live a more meaningful life. We are a community, a space to explore the Christian faith, and a place where you can contribute and grow. And you are welcome at Crowd Church. Don't forget to subscribe to the What's the Story podcast on your favourite podcast app, because we've got a treasure trove of inspiring stories coming your way, and we would basically hate for you to miss any of them. And just in case no one has told you yet today, remember, you are awesome. Yes, you are. Created awesome. It's just a burden you have to bear. What's the Story is a production of Crowd Church. Our fantastic team, including Anna Katy, Sadaf Bainon, and me, Matt Edmondson, and Tanya Hutzalak, work behind the scenes tirelessly to bring you all these fabulous stories. Our theme song is a creative work of Josh Edmondson. And if you're interested in the transcript or show notes, head over to our website, whatsthestorypodcast.com. And whilst you're there, sign up for our free weekly newsletter to get all of this goodness delivered straight to your inbox. So that's it from all of us this week here at What's the Story. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a fantastic week wherever you are in the world. We'll catch you next time. Bye for now.